Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Bradley Beal wanted to be in Washington. The Wizards said, if you love it, let it go. What's next for the professional basketball team in our nation's capital? Also, is Grady Dick worth a first-round pick? And why Damian Lillard will not be taking his talents to South Beach. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
He was the franchise player, a player who wanted to be in D.C. Now he's going to be in the desert. Bradley Beal, now a member of the Phoenix Suns, and a deal for Landry Shamet, Chris Paul, and a bunch of stuff. The future of the Washington Wizards now in question because the future of Chris Paul, presumably the centerpiece of this trade, now in question as well. Brandon Scott from Locked On Wizards joins me now. And Brandon, if you're the Wizards, it sounds like, based on the reporting, that the options were rebuild and trade Bradley Beal. If that's the path you want to go on, Beal was open to that possibility. Or, and it seemed like Beal's preference was, I want to stay in DC. This feels like a decision the organization made. Why?
Well, there's a new sheriff in town. We got new management. Tommy Shepard is out. New president of basketball operations, Michael Winger's here, and Will Dawkins, the general manager. So, what is the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing and expecting different results. Yeah. With Bradley Beal as the guy, the franchise player, and with the trio, the solid three, as me and my co-host called them, of him, Kristaps Porzingis, and Kyle Kuzma, they only went so far. And with his contract, it was hard to build around him and still, have a solid bench. And so it's just the writing was on the wall. With the trio together, they missed the plan. So you got to ask yourself, what is the ceiling for that group? So I think that the fan base in DC, they want to rebuild. And from owner, Ted Leonsis looks at the writing on the wall and he's saying, look, if this solid core can only take us so far, what are we doing? So
I think this raises the question, especially in what is going to be a 2024 draft that does not look nearly as good as this 2023 draft. Why wasn't this done a year ago? Why give Bradley Beal the Supermax and not figure this out a year sooner, aside from the fact that it took a new administration, as you said, to make this move?
Yeah, that is a very good question that a lot of us fans have been asking for many years, because in my humble opinion, we should have moved Bradley Beal the same year we moved Russell Westbrook to the Lakers. I believe at the time there was a rumored deal where the Golden State Warriors were offering the 7th pick, the 14th pick, Andrew Wiggins, and possibly James Wiseman. I personally thought that was a deal that could possibly speed up a rebuild, but you're absolutely correct. We delayed the inevitable for so many years. And then you wait till we sign him to a Supermax contract that includes a no trade clause, which, by the way, he's the only player in the NBA that has that. So yes, it's just so many questionable moves. And you can argue that, yeah, you're seeing the right moves by Ted Leonsis, by, revamping the front office. But then, the thought in the back of your head is you should have did this years ago. So.
Yeah, you get credit for making the move. You don't get credit for waiting too long to make the move, because it seems like that is the circumstance Washington finds itself in now. Okay, that raises questions about the future. Let's start with Chris Paul, because there are some reports now that Washington does not have an appetite to keep Chris Paul, that in fact he was essentially traded to be roster filler, salary filler in this case. And so why not? Why not see if you can get assets for Chris Paul?
Oh, absolutely. You have to try to get as many assets as you can, because, we're going into a full rebuild. Bradley Beal was the first domino to fall. Now you're looking at, a possible sign and trade for Kyle Kuzma. You're looking at KP. If he opts in, he could be a trade candidate. There's been rumors of him maybe being flipped to Portland for the 3rd pick. It's questionable, but I would definitely welcome that. But, you have to get as many assets as you can, because in a full rebuild, we have a young cast and, Corey Kispert, Denny Avdia, and Johnny Davis. But, Denny Avdia himself is on a contract deal. This is a contract year for him. So you're looking at 2, maybe 3 guys as a young foundation. So you have to try to get as many assets as you can. And another, perspective to look at is, now that we have cap relief, we can take on bad contracts, because usually teams are going to attach a 1st-round pick or picks to a bad deal. So, we have a lot more flexibility now, where before, 72 hours ago, we were weighed down by that Supermax contract.
And someone like Johnny Davis, who you mentioned, has not proven he's an NBA player yet. I mean, has been borderline not one for most of his rookie season. So for the Wizards, what is the right move with Kyle Kuzma and Kristaps Porzingis? It seems like those guys, at least in the case of Kuzma could be the kind of guy who fits into a lot of different situations. He's still relatively young. Is he someone who makes sense? Kristaps Porzingis, if he, instead of opting in, says, I'd rather take the years and I'll do it for a little less money. Like, what do you think makes the most sense there with those two guys?
Well, in the case of Kristaps Porzingis, he is a fan favorite, and I think a lot of people wouldn't be too mad.
In a hurry, short period of time.
Oh, absolutely. Because, he, like you said, 1.5 years, he's already solidified himself as a kind of a fan favorite. So I don't think a lot of people would be disappointed from a fan perspective if he stayed. But, from a front office, just start over fresh. At this point, start, build a foundation, try to get as many assets, young players, expiring deals as you can. So while I am a personal fan of KP and Kuz, it's just the writing's on the wall in DC. It's time to start over from scratch.
Stay up to date all year on the Washington Wizards by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Wizards on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, is Grady Dick worth a first-round pick? Before we answer that, our Locked On Hornets host has an answer for his team's indecision. Baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to join today. The Cincinnati Reds have a chance to match their longest winning streak this century and face the Colorado Rockies at Great American Ballpark. FanDuel likes their chances and has the Reds money line -168. So don't miss your chance to snag a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. The Charlotte Hornets are going back and forth as to who they want to pick number 2 overall. Locked On Hornets Walker Mel knows which way they should go.
I'm Walker Mail from the Locked On Hornets podcast, and I'm selecting where a lot of people think the draft actually starts. Will the Charlotte Hornets take Branden Miller or Scoot Henderson number 2? Well, in the Locked On NBA mock draft, the Charlotte Hornets take Scoot Henderson number 2 overall out of G League Ignite. I think he's one of the best guard prospects we've seen in quite some time, and I think he has all NBA potential. But people don't like him here in Charlotte because they don't like the fit between LaMelo Ball and Scoot Henderson in the backcourt. Not only am I not worried about that fit, I think it's actually really good. They complement each other in so many different areas. LaMelo off ball, he shot 41% from threes on catch and shoot opportunities and 37% overall from threes just last season. Already one of the better shooters in the NBA. Plus, Scoot on ball provides great rim pressure. I like his PNR decision making. He's a good playmaker with a tight handle.
Which means the Portland Trailblazers decision is easy at number 3, although Damian Lillard, he may not like it.
With the third pick, the Portland Trailblazers go Branden Miller, somewhat reluctantly, quite frankly. Might be a two-way star that everyone covets in the league, but the Blazers are in a situation where they're trying to appease their star. So I tried to make a trade with the Toronto Raptors, and it didn't quite work out in a package that I was comfortable with for Pascal Siakam. Same thing with contacting the Brooklyn Nets and interest in Mikal Bridges, shopping this third overall pick. The Nets weren't particularly interested in shopping Mikal Bridges, even as part of a 3-team deal that netted them 2 first-round picks from the Houston Rockets. So instead, take your medicine. Take a really good player at 3. It's the best type of medicine as a really good teenager. The problem is that it's not what Damian Lillard wants. In real life, taking this pick might have real repercussions, but in this world, I'll just talk to Dame right after this.
On the diamond, the Cincinnati Reds got Joey Votto back, and everything went according to plan as they won their 9th in a row. And now, get this, sit atop the NL Central.
Joseph Daniel Votto still bangs. What's up? This is Jeff Carr from the Locked On Reds podcast. And the Cincinnati Reds have won 9 games in a row. There is no more fun team in baseball than the Cincinnati Reds. The Colorado Rockies found that out tonight. There was solo home runs all over the place. Kevin Newman got us started off. You had a solo shot. I mean, that was a bomb from Nick Senzel, but Joey Votto owned the night. He comes back, 2 hits, the go-ahead RBIs in the 8th inning. Absolutely amazing stuff. They got a shot for the 10th win, the longest winning streak or tied this century for the Cincinnati Reds. If they win tomorrow night, we're going to be all over it on the next Locked On Reds podcast.
And the Houston Astros are searching for answers right now after getting walloped by the New York Mets.
It was a homecoming. There was joy. There were cheers, memories of 17 and 22. Justin Verlander was handed his ring. This was going to be a great game. Hunter Brown, Justin Verlander 2.0 was going to show the Mets a thing or two. But the Mets had other plans. After 2 no-hit innings by both pitchers, the Mets put up a 5 spot. And Francisco Lindor, who's batting .212, hit a home run. Vogelback hit a home run. The Mets scored 11 runs. The Astros had 1 run. Yanner Diaz, the lone solo shot. Everything else just wasn't happening. This team is in a funk. This team has lost, 5 games in a row after a sweep of the Reds by the Reds. There's no end in sight right now. They are struggling. They put a rookie pitcher out on the mound later in the game. Sean Dubin gave up several runs. A tough outing. They got to come back and face Justin Verlander in Game 2.
Our Locked On NBA hosts put together the ultimate mock draft when each of our local hosts make picks for their teams. There are always controversial picks in the NBA draft, and our Locked On Magic host made one that really drew the ire of our draft analysts.
This is Philip Rossreich, the host of Locked On Magic, and with the 6th pick in the 2023 Locked On NBA mock draft, the Orlando Magic select Grady Dick. Now, there are a lot of upside plays here. When you're drafting 6, you typically don't want to go for need. But the fact of the matter is, this Magic team needs shooting. And they need shooting badly. It is the biggest thing they need. It's the biggest thing they need to support their young core, Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. And at this point, with the Magic where they are, having won 34 games last year, this Orlando Magic team needs to start positioning itself to win. So yes, you don't always want to draft solely on need, but this need is pretty big. And like last year where maybe we overthought some things come draft night, it's time to make the simple choice. The Magic need shooting, so take the best shooter in the draft. And that very well could be Grady Dick.
Ooh, some eyebrows raising over here. Interesting selection. All right, before we get your guys' takes on this, our Locked On Thunder host, Rylan Stiles, is a big fan of the Grady Dick selection. Let's check out what's going on over in the war room.
Grady Dick is amazing. He's more than a shooter, folks.
Really?
Great feel for the game, really good rebounder. I think he can be a really good off-ball defender too. Now, you're going to have to hide him in your team construct, but he can be a good off-ball defender, high motor, always moving, can shoot off movement. I think he's going to be really good.
Cerebral, hard hat, lunch pail guy, first guy in and out of the gym, real gym rat, scrappy, sneaky athletic.
Coach's son.
There you go.
He's played a lot of high-level basketball. He played, he was a Gatorade All-American, Gatorade All-Player of the Year, played in high-level high school circuits, and then played at Kansas for Bill Self.
And you've won cliche bingo. You did it. You hit all the hot button terms.
Okay, well, we got some of the positives in regard to the selection and what Grady Dick brings to the table, but certainly some eyebrows raised. The 6th pick much higher than he was projected at going. I think there certainly is some higher level talent overall with some bigger potential left on the board. Was this the right choice for Orlando, Raphael? We'll start with you.
On one hand, I get it. They definitely have a need for shooting. They were one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the league. I think they were 23rd in three-point shooting. So I get it. I think they could have got him at 11 if they really wanted to. Again, I'm sure Isaac probably agrees, since we agree on a lot of things. I would have went with Cam Whitmore, because Cam Whitmore is, I think, the better prospect. I think he has the higher upside. And he shot 40% off the catch this year. He ranked in the top 84 percentile in college basketball in shooting off the catch. So you get your shooting, athleticism. I mean, I just think you get more with Cam Whitmore.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the shooting is there. It's unquestionable. The swagger is there. Like, not only, obviously, there have been jokes made all year about his name, but Grady Dick brings it on the court. Like, he knows he's the dude, and he walks around like it. Kansas this past year needed either he or Jalen Wilson to go, or they didn't go as a team, because the rest of their starters were guys that are really strong defenders, but not just walking buckets like Grady Dick is. And so at the collegiate level, he was athletic enough to do what he needed to do, but it's very average level NBA athleticism, in my opinion. Raphael, you can tell me if I'm wrong on that. Here's what's missed about Grady Dick is he has great positional size. We're going to talk about Jarris Walker. I'm sure he's coming off the board soon here. Grady Dick is only a quarter inch shorter than Jarris Walker. And so those kind of things can get missed. As was said in the war room, you're going to have to find ways to kind of hide him defensively, because if I'm an opposing coach, top of my scouting report, all right, who's Grady Dick guarding? Cool, give him the ball, let's go.
Catch every pick of the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft by subscribing to Locked On NBA on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, don't expect Dame time to be happening in South Beach next season. Damian Lillard wants out of Portland. Maybe. Or maybe he wants to stay, which means if he's going to go somewhere, there's got to be a powerful draw to get there. The Miami Heat seem like a natural pairing. They need the star power. Not so fast, says Locked On NBA host Matt Moore and David Ramil.
Now, when it comes to Lillard, we've heard that Bam Adebayo, who has a close relationship with Dame Lillard, that Jimmy Butler, both of them have been heavily, quote unquote, recruiting Dame to see if he'll force their hand a little bit. So that might put pressure on the Blazers as well. I just don't see any of it really happening. Like, and this isn't a knock on Miami's front office, and I know a lot of Heat fans and maybe NBA fans in general will see it. They do what they can to acquire superstars when they're available. But if they're already under contract, there's only so much you can do, especially if they don't go out of their way to request a trade to said organization. And that's what we see happening with Portland. I don't have any problem with Lillard not forcing Portland's hand. He's talked about it before. You and I have talked about it. We're never sure exactly about what players prioritize, especially late in their career. But when you look at all the individual accolades and everything else, like Dame Lillard's a Hall of Famer, and he wants to be happy and he wants to win. There's no doubt about that. And he also wants to win in Portland because he feels a close connection to the organization, the people there, the fans, the front office, the organization. I mean, everything involved in Blazerdom is something that Lillard has grown to embody, to connect with. And if he wants to stay there and win, I don't have a problem with that.
Sometimes we underestimate the value of building something. And Damian Lillard has built a culture in Portland, or at the very least, he sets the culture. He is the Portland Trailblazers, a guy who is making a push, if he's not already the best player in team history. Understanding, and all due respect to the greats that have come before him, the best modern player, maybe the best player since Bill Walton. Let's do that. So why leave? Heat culture is all the rage. They just went to the NBA Finals, and Dame culture hasn't even made it to the NBA Finals. But still, the big part of the appeal of going to play in Miami is Heat culture, and then, of course, getting to play in South Beach. But Damian Lillard has built something in Portland, wants to be in Portland, wants them to want to win in Portland. When you are the culture setter, going somewhere where everything else, the culture is already set, everything else dictates that piece, that thing that you are as good as any player in the NBA at doing. I just don't know why you'd want to go to that place rather than try and win where you are. Pick somewhere, if you're going to go, pick somewhere that needs the thing that you do. In addition to the scoring and the assists and the shooting and the star power. He needs to go, if he's going to go somewhere, that needs to be where he is the linchpin piece to push that culture over the top. That is not Miami. And finally, Luis Arias is hard to get out. Just ask the Toronto Blue Jays. He went 5 for 5 on Monday night and elevated his batting average back above 400. He's just the 4th player ever with 3 5-hit games in a calendar month. The other 3 are Hall of Famers, George Sisler, Ty Cobb, and Dave Winfield. Arias is chasing insane history if he can do this and keep it up, as no player has had a batting average of 400 or above for an entire season since Ted Williams did it for the Boston Red Sox in 1941. He hit 406. He's in the rarest of company with his performance this year, and to think he was with the Minnesota Twins last year. Thanks for making Locked On Sports today your first listen. Now go find your favorite team's Locked On podcast and make them your second listen. Coming up tomorrow, who will be the 4th pick in a 3-player NBA draft? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.